Welcome to the Pilgrim's Poetry. I'm your host, Darren, and I'm very excited for this first episode of the Pilgrim's Poetry. We're going to be looking at poetry published by myself today, in the hopes that it will bless the listener. This podcast is for everyone, regardless of religion, sexuality, race, gender, background, etc. So you're more than welcome here at the Pilgrim's Poetry. And if you feel that this channel could benefit you, don't forget to subscribe. So from the famous poem about daffodils by Wordsworth to tulips by Plath, all types of flowers have been spoken about in poetry as a means of expression. And this poem is no different. Once again, welcome pilgrims and precious others to today's episode of the Pilgrim's Poetry, and I'm your host, Darren. Today we're going to be looking at a poem written by myself. Its title is The Garden, and it deals with the topic of sin and redemption. And before you listen, I want you to consider this focus question. It is, how are sinful humans reconciled to a perfect God? How are sinful humans reconciled to a perfect God? So keep that in mind. In the next section, you're going to hear the poem, and then afterwards, we will discuss this focus question in a time of reflection. The garden. This garden has been trodden on, its face beaten beneath the brash and brutish blows of the sinner's feet. Man did come to wreck this soil, and with a hand they struck the grass, the ground's glorious beard, and from it did they pluck. But such a thing was not enough to sate such evil thirst, for this garden's beauty did so shine that evil appeared the worst. So sinners did devise a plan, to bring a kiss impure to the garden, to end its very life, that evil may endure. Rip the dahlia and the rose, the tender shoot must die, said one of them to another. In unison they cry, strip the hedges and the bushes, that naked this may be, a garden stripped of clothes and glory, for men to look and see. So pleased they were to see their work, when its beauty they did rend. A garden fair now brought to wreck, in a parched and thirsty land. But little did the sinner know, this garden's precious life was offered up before the throne, to end all sin, all guilt, all strife. Just one last time they struck the ground, in the garden's east, to end the matter, to kill the garden, but 'twas life that was released. Water came shooting forth, in a dry and thirsty land, streams of mercy, streams of life, that other gardens may stand. Look to the garden now, dear sinner, for to this day it stands. 3 days later it rose again, with blooms, a beautiful land. Do not move to left or right, for all that you must do is trust the garden absorbed your sin, repent, and be made new. Now, pilgrims and precious others, I hope that poem blessed you, and if it hasn't so yet, we're going to unpack it and talk about the meaning of the poem. We won't cover all of the poem, but just the main ideas. Now, if you can remember, our focus question was, how can sinful human beings be reconciled to a perfect God? How can sinful human beings be reconciled to a perfect God? Now, I don't know about you, but growing up, I had an awful awareness of my own sin. I knew that I wasn't perfect, and because of this, I didn't have the right to stand before a holy God and not be judged. That might sound harsh, but if you think about it, it's not. You see, God is perfect. He's sinless. And just as any other judge, he's a judge, he's the highest judge of all. And any other judge, if they tolerated evil and let it slide, they would be called a cruel judge. And in the same manner, God cannot be a cruel judge. He must punish sin because it's evil. and the Bible teaches that all men have fallen short of the glory of God. But there is hope, and that is what this poem covers today. So, if you look back to the poem, we see that the precious garden's life was offered up before the throne to end all sin, all guilt, all strife. What does that mean? Well, the garden is an image of Christ. It's pure life, and its life was offered up before the throne of God as a ransom to pay for our sin. You see, the debt that we owed God because of our sin, Jesus, in his mercy, gave his life in order to pay for it. He is infinitely precious, and so he is able to pay for infinitely deplorable sin, because that's what God views sin as. It's infinitely deplorable. So what must I do as an individual to receive the pardon of forgiveness, past, present, and future sins from Christ? Well, dear friends, just as it says in the poem, do not move to the left or to the right. All that you must do is trust the garden absorbed your sin, repent, and be made new. In other words, trust that Jesus, God the Son, his sacrifice was good enough to pay for your sin, past, present, and future. And don't trust in yourself, no. Only his sacrifice, and his sacrifice alone, is acceptable before a holy God. So don't try and save yourself by good works or church attendance. These things are important, and they will come later. But a sure foundation to your faith, and the only foundation to your faith, the only thing that saves you, is the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross. So trust in that and repent of sin. It means to make a decision to turn from sin. A true decision to turn from sin. Now, dear friends, that brings us to the end of episode 1 of The Pilgrim's Poetry. I do hope that blessed you. If you have decided to give your life to Christ, why not drop a voice message or an email? Voice message link is available in the description, and my email is also available. It's dddy62@gmail.com. dddy62@gmail.com. And you can find it below as well. Okay, so God bless, and as always, take care.